Rabbi, it's been a tough couple of weeks, I'd say, for the world out there with
Yes.
with terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think everybody's kind of almost feeling like an Israeli for the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, not really, but and they'll forget about it 2 weeks later. But here's the question: you hear all this stuff you watch on the news, and of course, I know it's 24-hour coverage and everything like that. But what possessed these people to do it? Why did it? Who was the mastermind behind these terrorist attacks? This must have been a great coordinated attack. This must have been planned. And they go through the whole thing. We go into so much detail about the people. I mean, example, we talk about the one in Paris. Let's talk about what happened in Paris. The first thing is that this is not just a normal one-off terrorist thing. This was planned. They were trained. These people were trained. And you're picturing yourself, like these guys were trained. Like, was it like the Rocky movie, when they woke up in the morning, drank the eggs, and then went for a run up the art museum steps, and maybe even got into the meat packing place and start shooting at the meat and stuff like that to get trained. And you think stabbing the meat, shooting the meat, and then they're talking about the mastermind behind it. This guy, I think it was Salami.
Right.
He must have been the mastermind. I think the mastermind. I mean, did it really take that much? In fact, this guy's already failed. He had 4 failed terrorist attacks. How do you have failed terrorist attack? I mean, you blow yourself up. I mean, I don't. How's?
Want to hear something quaint?
What was that?
What if I say the words Osama bin Laden?
Okay, well,
Doesn't that sound like quaint, like from a long ago time?
Yeah, way back.
But we got him.
Yeah, right.
We got him. Right, and that certainly changed everything because we caught him, right?
It does. Things are so different now.
Right, that took care of it because we caught the mastermind.
The mastermind. Well, that's why I totally get the whole mastermind. I know you have to say something in the news, but this mastermind, I'm just guessing, probably had, a fifth, sixth grade education. And by fifth grade education is serious, probably if you got 5 Jews in a car and you blow them up and you get 10 versions per Jew you kill, how many Jews do you have?
Don't be surprised. The guy could have gone to Harvard or Yale too. Could have been very well have been trained in Cambridge.
Well, one of them, the guy in Washington now, at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, he went to Harvard, so I figure they can't be. They can go there.
Right. I mean, these guys are not necessarily dumb, and they're not necessarily underclass or half-wits. Yeah, a lot of these guys are very intelligent guys that actually seem to have a lot more, you would think, which even bothers the Western mind even more. They've got everything going for them that, let's say, that many Western thinkers or President Obama would say that those are not the type of people that would do these things because, it's only the people that are disenfranchised, that are oppressed. A lot of these people are really on the top of their game. They could have made a lot of Western society, but yet they decide to blow it up.
So you're saying it's not because they couldn't get the job at the falafel stand, or they're so upset and starving about it, and they're reacting sort of like,
not at all. Some of these guys not only own a falafel stand, but they could own a chain of falafel stands.
So it's not like Occupy falafel stand. Right. Because I'm still saying you might be right. They might be smart, but does it really take that much to plan a coordinated terrorist attack? And here's the thing. Salami tells you, okay, let's go to the dollar store. Each of us buy one of these little watches. You don't even have to tell time, because you can get a digital watch, Hello Kitty or something like that watch for like 50 cents. You put it on, and when it says 7 o'clock, blow yourself up. I mean, it's not that, but we talk like this is some big thing, and they planned it, and who are we going to go, well, why did they kill these kids at the concert? Maybe because the band represented something the Muslims didn't like. I think, this is just me talking here, maybe it's simpler than that. If you're in Israel, it's easy. If you're in Israel, look, there's 6 million Jews there. All I do is get the kitchen knife, I walk around and find a Jew, and I stab him. I hopefully stab him and then maybe get myself killed so that CNN and John Kerry and Barack Obama could say that I'm another victim of Israeli aggression, something like that. But if I'm over here in Paris, okay, you find a bunch of Westerners, you go to a concert because there's 1,000 kids, you blow yourself up or you kill a lot of people. Do you really care who that victim is? Are you looking down there and saying, I care, this woman I shot and this woman I shot, or if I'm in America, I went and I cut off my coworker's head? Do they really care? Is the point is just to create terror? Let's just kill people,
right?
And that's the difference. Because I know you probably have some deep Torah conversation of how they picked the victim. I'm thinking in Israel. Here's the thing: it's like that game you play when you're a kid. It's kind of if you kill somebody that's a white person, you get a certain amount of points. If you kill a Jew, double points. I think that's as far as it goes. I might be wrong.
Well, I'll tell you even more. I was just reading an interview with a girl who was stabbed multiple times. She is 13 years old.
I saw that. Yep.
She was stabbed, and she said they're walking down the street, her and her friend. They saw a guy behind them, had his hand in his pocket. It looked suspicious. So they started walking faster. He started walking faster. They started running, so he ran after them. He caught up to her. He stabbed her. She screamed to her friend, like, run away. The friend ran away. He started chasing after the friend who ran away.
Right.
But instead, he came across an old lady on the street. So he stopped and stabbed her. So, old lady, 13-year-old girl. I mean, he just looking for anyone that's walking down the street. It didn't take a lot of planning.
That's what I'm saying. So, is it that deep? Listen, you kill a Jew. Well, you're in Israel. Israel makes it easier. Anybody else kill a Jew, kill somebody who looks like a Jew. What does it matter?
I mean, the truth is, he didn't even have to spend any time or energy. It's not like obtaining weapons. Like, if you're going to build a bomb, you might take a little bit of time, and maybe you have to have someone who has some expertise. Right. How long does it take to obtain a kitchen knife?
Not hard. I mean, that's So I'm thinking. Maybe was there a mastermind behind the guy who chased the 13-year-old guy? I don't think there's any masterminds in any of it. Maybe, when you're planning the 9/11. There's I think let's go kill. Let's go kill. Listen, we get credit for it around the world. We get to be called a mastermind. Everything's great. I don't think there's anything more to it.
And, there is something more to it, which you always have to remember, and that is that the family of the person who did the killing, who will probably be killed. Right. He might end up in jail or he'll be killed on the spot, but the family will be immediately enrolled in the support system, social support system of Hamas, and they're now going to be receiving regular payments and all that. So if you're a guy and you're a little bit behind on your payments, or you maybe you don't have a job or whatever it is, like one of these guys recently, that one of them is a father of 5. So, maybe it's a way to cash in, it's like a life insurance policy.
Well, I'm just curious, what would happen? It's just a what if here. I like to throw a what if out there. What if you got it already, you got your kitchen knife out there, you go on a terrorist thing, and you accidentally stab a Bedouin, or you kill somebody else. Right. You went through all this trouble.
He did. He did, by the way. It was a drive-by shooting.
Oh, no.
It was a drive-by shooting, and the guy actually killed a Palestinian or two who also happened to be... It was a busy intersection. There's a big traffic backup at this busy intersection.
Epic fail. They would have this on Facebook. So terrorist fails.
The guy drives by with his car and starts shooting, and then he got out of his car and started spraying the crowd. And he killed a couple of people, but in the crowd was also Palestinians. So he killed the Palestinians as well as some Jews. So
do you lose points on that?
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I mean, I think it's probably like football. They like total yardage. They subtract if you lose on a play. They subtract it from your total yardage.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying. Is it really that complicated to be a terrorist? Do you really have to study at the terrorist academy and decide what you're going to do and who am I going to kill? Do you have did they put up those little posters of who to shoot? This was a little girl right here, and this guy looks Palestinian. Don't shoot. Who do you shoot?
Right.
Or is it just pretty much you get a knife and kill or bomb and shoot, blow up, and whatever?
Yeah, I don't think there is really too much to it. And to tell you the truth, I think that we have spent a lot of time, society, has spent a lot of time trying to figure out the terrorists, what's motivating them, what their plans are, and all that type of stuff. I think with the most recent Paris attacks, it became obvious to much of the world that which Israel had already understood. Even left-leaning people in Israel, except for really hardcore, I think everyone realizes it's sort of an intractable problem and you really can't reason with these guys. So there's no sense trying to figure them out or figure out what is their need, program, or goal, because if we could figure out what their goal is, I'm sure everyone would bend over backwards to give them their goal, except no one can figure out what their goal is. So let's just forget about them. And we have to, I think, appreciate that these people are committed to this. Right. They're committed to their terrorism. We're not really sure exactly why they're committed to this terrorism, and I don't know that it really matters. We just have to figure out a way to stop them or protect ourselves. But a question that really is bothering lots of people, and I think is a very valid question, it's an important question, is what about the victims? How do we understand the victims of terrorism? When we go to bed at night, to understand that there is a crazy man in the world who wants to kill people for no reason, okay, I think we all adults, have come to the point where we understood that there are crazy people
right.
who do crazy things that we never, ever will really understand. We do this all the time. We look at people who are stuck in, who knows, all kinds of addictions. And you say to them, hey, come on, man, what are you doing? You're killing yourself. You're causing so much pain to everyone who loves you. You're causing so much. Why do you do this? And the guy goes, I don't know. I'm just, and there's no answer. And we've all kind of sort of made peace with the fact that
right.
there are things that we just don't understand. But on the other hand, we want to understand, how about the people that aren't the pain inflictors, the sufferers? How do you understand the sufferers? If I got an addict who's got his problem for whatever it is, I got that, but why does his wife, family, community, boss, all the people around him, why do they have to suffer? And similarly, the terror victims, I get the fact that there's this crazy terrorist, but you got this 13-year-old girl. She's walking down the street. What's she doing? What is she doing to anyone? And, is she, or you even think about it, some years ago, there was a family that was murdered. They lived in the West Bank, and they were all murdered. My God, it's okay. And everyone said, well, because they were living in the West Bank, and that's why they were like in violation. So the guy came in and he murdered them. Okay, he murdered the baby in the crib.
Right.
But why did he murder the baby in the crib? What was that all about? What's with the baby? Now, forget about him. So the guy who did it is clearly an absolute raving lunatic, and that's why he killed everyone. Understandable, because we know they're raving lunatics. What's with the baby? How do we understand the baby? How do we understand the families? How do we understand the poor people? How do we understand the little old lady who's walking down the street and the guy has to come and stab her? And one 13-year-old girl runs away and the other is stabbed. Well, what is that? How does that work? And then she's going to have to live with her wounds for the rest of her life. When they say that she's going to live, you don't know, live, but
right.
Who knows what she's going to live with? Who knows what kind of medical condition she's going to suffer from the rest of her life? Who knows, So how do we understand them? That's really the problem, and that's what I think people need to know. And this is what is very interesting, where there's a divide here between the Jews and the concert goer, restaurant patron, soccer fan in France. You see, the Charlie Hebdo people, okay, so they can say, they were kind of crusaders.
Well, John Kerry, I think, explained this pretty well. Those were legitimate causes.
Right, legitimate causes, right.
And in Israel as well, I assume he feels the same way. That's legitimate.
Right, right. So that's right. That makes sense. That makes sense to them. Crazy, but okay. And maybe you could say, well, they're crusaders and they gave their lives up for a cause.
Right. And you're Jews.
Well, then you gave life, and that's where it gets kind of interesting, because if you were just going for dinner in Paris or to catch a concert or a game, hey, what do I got to do? What are you bothering me for? Not fair. What's the deal?
The synagogue down the road. What are you doing over here at the soccer match here?
Right. Now, Israel has been feeling that way for many, many years. I'm just a 13-year-old girl walking down the street. So the rest of the world says, no, you forgot you're Jewish. And therefore that makes sense. Right. But now that you came into my restaurant, that's a problem. So one of the guys said in Israel, a former minister, he said, it's just not polite for us to say we told you so.
Right.
But we told you so. Right. So how do you understand it? So here's the deal. As a Jew, there is a concept of martyrdom within Judaism also.
I didn't know that.
We have a concept of martyrdom. And the words in Hebrew, when someone dies as a martyr, is they die al kiddush Hashem, in the act of sanctifying God's name. So how does that work? Because many of these people are not. You think that the guy screams, they always scream out, I heard a guy screaming Allah Akbar, right? And then all of a sudden people are, I see blood flying around and all that. Right. They always announce the fact that, I guess because otherwise people wouldn't know that they're, doing something for God. But we believe that the girl who's just walking down the street and gets stabbed for no reason other than that she's Jewish, she is actually consecrating God's name. She is a holy martyr. God willing, in this particular case, this girl should live, but these people are martyrs, whether they're particularly doing something on behalf of God at the moment, or they're walking down the street, like the little old lady was just walking down the street. But the martyrdom is because we understand that there is this elaborate play going on. And it's the story of the Jewish people. So if you're a Jew and you're part of the story, so you understand that there's this big story and it's going to play out. And somewhere along the line, everyone that dies, yesterday there was a funeral in Sharon, Massachusetts, for a American boy, Jewish boy, that was spending a year in Israel and was on his way to deliver packages to Israeli soldiers, and he was killed in that shooting at that intersection, where they also killed the Palestinian.
Well, yeah, I only heard about the Palestinian. They killed an Israeli too.
Right.
I did hear 3 days later that Obama, after some pressure,
so this kid was killed there. Yeah,
I did hear that.
Yeah, right. So you wonder. So how do they explain it? How do they explain it? I for sure don't know how the Palestinians family, how they explain this to themselves. But there's some rabbi somewhere, I presume, is talking to the family of this guy who went to Israel. And they send him off to Israel to have a year and learn and grow and experience and all the stuff that people send kids off to Israel for. And then he gets killed. And how are they to understand that? So
that would be a tough one right there, yeah.
So I believe if I was the rabbi that had to speak to this family, I am sure, and this is what's probably happening right now, that they're explaining to this family that the Jewish people have a long history and a mission. And along the way, the Jewish people, in their pursuit of their mission throughout the world and their return home, there is a lot of sacrifice. And God himself, for whatever his reasons, chooses people that will be the sacrifices along the way. And that person does not choose it himself.
Well, that's the question. So we don't choose martyrdom in Judaism, no.
That's right. We don't choose martyrdom. Now, there may be times when we will take action, but even then, it's only because the circumstances are thrust upon itself. The famous martyr would be Samson. In the end of the story of Samson was being held was imprisoned, and Samson said, just give me one more shot. And he went out and they had him by the post underneath the big temple, and he prayed to God for strength, and he pushed the post out, and the whole temple collapsed because he was standing by a load-bearing post, and it brought down the whole temple, and he died, of course, and he took out all the Philistines with him. So that was the case, but again, he felt that the circumstances were such that the martyrdom was thrust upon him. We don't go looking for martyrdom. We let God choose who's going to be the martyr. And since God chose who's going to be the martyr, we can rest assured that it fits into his plan, although we do not understand exactly how and why. But we know that since I didn't choose to do it, it was thrust upon me by the circumstances, then I am an act of God. And I can trust that my life has a purpose, because God doesn't give life or take life from anyone without a sense of purpose. Every baby that's born, God had it all figured out why he wants that baby born. And when every person dies, at the time that they die, God has it figured out why that person leaves. And since I'm not controlling it, then that was an act of God, as far as I'm concerned. As far as the guy that perpetrated it, yeah, I want to kill him, and I want to try to do everything I can to stop it in the future.
And God's all right with that, even though he planned this.
And God's absolutely all right with that, because we are supposed to try to preserve ourselves. But if he wants, after we've done whatever we can do, to the extent that we can, and God has still decided that this person dies, then the person is a martyr, and we can presume that they have died to sanctify God's name, because ultimately, when it's all said and done, we'll say these are the people. And as a matter of fact, there have been 21 people since October, when all this broke out. Right during the holiday of Sukkot is really when all this bad stuff started happening. There have been 21 Israelis that have been, or Jews in Israel, who have been killed. And so that's in about a month's time or so, and that's pretty bad.
Well, all we hear in the news is there's also been more Palestinians that have died trying to kill them, so I think that's what I hear about it.
Right. So the guys that were the guys that tried to kill them, so they were murderers. So murderers, now we understand why they died, because they murdered someone else, so they died. The real question is, what are the people in France going to say? Because they refuse to view themselves, and I'm not just saying France, and this is all around the Western world,
or wherever else
right?
It's gonna be.
They refuse to view themselves as being engaged in a battle with a purpose. The Jew who goes to Israel says, I go there for a reason. To me, I'm going there, I live there, I continue to exist there because this is my homeland, this is granted to me by the Torah, my existence here ratifies something, and I understand why you're trying to kill me, because you disagree with the point I'm making. But the point, my life is a point. My life is a point, and then when you try to eradicate me and kill me, that further makes my point, because if my life wasn't a point, why do you want to kill me?
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it.
If I'm not living for something, then why do you want to kill me? So I really do believe that there is some logic behind these guys, the terrorists, and the terrorists realize that this Israeli,
well, definitely with
he's
the
got
Jew,
a reason.
I definitely see it with the Jew. Okay, I guess,
Right.
but I don't really. I guess it would be more difficult if you were in Paris to see. Why'd you walk into this restaurant and shoot these people? One could have been a Muslim, one could have been a Hindu,
Right.
one could have been a Jew.
And you know what? This is the age-old problem that befalls people who don't live a life with a greater purpose or with a goal. When you have decided to become a secular person, actually, a real true secularist should say, c'est la vie, or c'est la mort, right? I think that's it,
right.
Because that's the way it goes. I mean, listen, what's life anyway?
You're just here.
What does it matter? You're just here, and then you're not here.
Restaurant, and that was it.
Live, love, die. What does it matter? So they really shouldn't, technically, if they were really good secularists, they really shouldn't be bothered by all this. The problem is that they're really not very religious secularists. Because the real reason is that it doesn't really make sense to people, and people don't like it. They talk it. It's a good game when they want to be allowed to do all the things they want to be allowed to do, but when it goes against them, they don't like it.
So there are no atheists in soccer games.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Or or as someone just told me he heard many years ago, I don't believe in God. A lady said, he took my son.
I think that's probably been said many times. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, right. Okay. Right. So that's really they don't believe in God, but the truth is everyone's looking for meaning, and everyone's and what this does actually is highlights, and they think that they're going to. So they're bombing ISIS in Syria. You can bomb ISIS in Syria into non-existence. Some other guy over in Brussels is still going to get some buddies together and say, hey, let's go blow ourselves up.
Well, which is true.
Right. So really this is a challenge to Western philosophy, to Western society, and it is a challenge for society to stand up and say, do we have meaning? They live their lives for some type of meaning, which is inscrutable to us. What is our meaning of life? Why are we alive? And where does this fit in? Is there a big picture or isn't there a big picture? If you're Jewish and you live in Israel, so you're part of that big picture. And that's really what Carrie was talking about. Because in a certain way, it does make sense. The other people, they have a harder time. But for a Jew, we realize that martyrdom could come upon us at any moment. And what you want to be doing is you want to be living your life in a good way, in the truest sense, so that if something like that does happen, then you truly are considered to be a martyr.
Because for us, I guess you're saying it makes sense. It could happen, and it's not a random, crazy act out there. If it happens, especially to a Jew, it's an act that was supposed to happen, and it has a greater purpose. The act itself even has a greater purpose.
Right. I have a little rule that I try to live, to do things. When I have a question, should I do this or should I not do it? Is this crazy or is it not crazy? So I always ask, well, let's say I were, heaven forbid, to die doing this. What would people say?
Wow.
So when people get together and say, like, what in the world was he thinking? Right? If that's how people are going to react, then it's probably not a good idea.
Why no one goes out with you now, right?
Yeah. Why did he do that? That was so crazy. Why didn't he, So, I wanted to if and when it happens, I want people to go, that's a tragedy. That's a bona fide tragedy. The guy was just doing his life.
Why was he there?
Right. If it's one of those, you want to live your life in such a way that if it has to end tragically, it should be ending tragically. Not everyone's like, oh, well, that was the stupidest thing.
No, what was he doing? Yeah.
So, in a certain way, that's how a Jew lives. A
Rabbi
Jew should live like
here. You put that in everybody's head, you can't do anything anymore.
Right.
That's tough.
Yeah, you just live a good life. Live a good, clean life, and go about your business and do what you need to do, And if something crazy comes in, like one of these things, then that's an act of martyrdom. If your life stands for something and someone feels a need to take away that life, then that means you stood for something. So all these poor people in the soccer stadium, what they really should be thinking is, I want my life to stand for something, and I am a soldier in the army that stands and lives for that. And if I die, then I die as a soldier in that army, and my life had purpose.
Oh, yeah. I hope that would bring comfort to the families, like of this poor boy up in Boston or wherever he is now. I hope that, because I know what you're saying. It's a tough one, though, but better to stand for something than not. And
if one is a Jew, and one wants to live as a Jew, then they should come to terms with that and be proud of it and embrace it. It's a pity if someone, let's say, someone died and they lost their life, and then we look at it and you're not part of a meaningful act, and it wasn't part of a meaningful act. That's tragic.
It is tragic, and I guess it's got to be tragic because you can make the decision not to be a Jew, but that doesn't mean that Ahmed,
the other guy, right?
He's already made the decision for you, so I guess you might as well go down by standing for something.
Right. Then, of course, you have to live your life. You're always trying to avoid and be afraid you can't ever go anywhere. Can't go where it's dangerous. Can't go to Israel because that's too dangerous, and I can't go to a synagogue because that's too dangerous, and I can't ever be seen with another Jew because that's too dangerous, and I can't. And pretty soon, and then the guy is so busy trying to avoid everything that's dangerous that he's sitting at a restaurant in Paris having dinner on Friday night. I wouldn't be home with my family or going to a synagogue on Friday night. I got to go out to a concert on Friday night. That's safe. No, I guess not.
So it didn't work anyway. You know what? It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point. So I guess you're a Jew. For Jews, listen, you're a Jew, and if it happens, it happens. But it does have a meaning,
right?
And it probably might have had a meaning for the people sitting in that concert in Paris as well. But they might not know it.
And that's what people. If generally society accepts upon itself that my life does have a meaning, and I am actually engaged. I didn't look for this war, but I'm actually engaged in a war against these other people who have an understanding of life antithetical to me. Then you are a soldier, and guess what? Just as every Israeli citizen has learned, every Israeli citizen was drafted into the army to fight in the war by the terrorists, by the people that want to kill them. And what the Western society is now learning, that they're being drafted into that war, whether you like it or not.
Wow. Oh, interesting. Well, that's it gives some meaning to being a victim.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. It makes sense. Well, only one thing I say is not be a victim is maybe got to take it the other way and see if you can solve the problem, and then maybe we won't be a victim.
Stand for something.
Stand for something. All right. Well, we will see you next week, I guess. We'll be back next week with another episode of Jeff and the Rabbi.
Yeah.